Okay, once again, I want to say Mazel Tov to Shmuel on the beautiful Simcha of the Eidel born to Esti and Shol Runov. You see a lot of knockers from them. Okay, Shmuel, we hope to be able to wish you soon a Mazel Tov on the Bar Mitzvah, but not that soon. That's right. Okay, so we are turning a new pair. What we're talking about now is we know that Nedarim halchanach eloshim b'nei adam. So the Mishnah is going to start sharing with us what certain words meant in that period of time. Again, it's hard for us to understand how people thought in those days and what words they used, but I'm sure that however unusual it sounds to us, our words would probably sound even more weird to them. Like in those days, woke means someone woke you up when you were sleeping, right? Today it has a whole different meaning. Non-binary had something to do with a computer, right? Okay. If someone says, so what does someone mean when he says mavushal? Now, we have to preface this that we once learned a Mishnah that said, all subject Nedarim you go l'chumra. But upirashay and l'kula, which means if you ask him, what did you mean? And he says, I meant not this vast group of things, but just a small little thing to restrict myself, you go l'kula. So what is the shiloh over here? So many of the Mepharshim say, if someone says, I want to ask myself on what Chazal say mavushal means. So that takes his das out of it. Otherwise, ask him, what did you mean? So I know you mean mavushal, mutar b'tzli. May not be able to eat cooked meat. He could eat roasted meat. He eat barbecued meat. Uv'sholok. Now, normally we tie sholok as something that is overcooked. The Ram is going to disagree with that. And let's see what the Ram says. When someone uses the word mavushal, he does not mean to forbid himself from tzli nor from sholok. But in this case, what sholok means, Dr. Ram, is sholok is bashal v'loy bashal. It means undercooked. Even though classically we know that sholok means overcooked, shaluka sholok tahacha is bashal v'loy bashal. Here it means partially cooked. Because when we're talking about what Nedarim mean, we don't care what its technical term is. We care about how it's used. The tavshel shenishbashel Yosy midai is bechlal mavushal, and it would be also. Okay, so that's number one. Mavushal means cooked. It doesn't mean tzli or sholok. Now, all of these different words that we're going to use, many of them, they're all categories, right? They're all a type of cook. You can cook meat. You can cook fish. You can cook many different things. You can cook lokshin. Mavushal means anything cooked. We're going to soon see other terms that are overlapped that also include tzli and mavushal, but they're different terms to describe a different type of prepared food. What if someone said koyin tapshel sheini toyim? I'm not going to eat a tapshel. What does a person mean when a person says tapshel? What he's referring to aser b'maisa k'derach. Any soft type of porridge that's very loose and watery, that's what he means to aser himself on. And the Gemara is going to shortly explain that when someone says tapshel, he's always referring to food that you would eat bread with. Any type of food that you would eat bread with, not necessarily dip, because it includes tzli as well. Any type of food that you would accompany with bread would be aser. But if it's very thick porridge, which normally people don't eat along with bread, only idiots eat thick porridge with bread. I'm not saying this for a joke. The Gemara is going to say that. Only an idiot would eat, and the Gemara is also going to tell where all these idiots live. And they're not Michiganists from Michigan. They're Tipshoi from a different country. So umuter ba'ava. I'm sorry? Yeah, that's right. That's the Gemara is going to say so.
Don't forget the custom amul is in a pizza, like a falafel. If the other dach was taken on a falafel,
umuter ba'ava, but you're allowed to eat very thick porridge. Umuter b'beita termuta, which the Ran teaches as an egg that was cooked 1,000 times in hot water and then soaked 1,000 times in cold water, and by the time it's done, it's the size of a pill, and you just swallow it. That's something that you normally don't eat with a slice of bread. It's not like having a geschmack of bullseye or a geschmack of scrambled eggs with bread. It's not that. It's a pill. It's an egg pill. With the las haramutza and the squash from ramutz, which also means it's overcooked and became small, I believe. Zok the Gemara. Hanoider mi maisik der. Zok the Mishnah right there. Someone who says, I'm not going to have a maisik der. What does he mean by that? Ein noser ela mi maisik rischasa. And the Ran tells us on Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, because the Ran is again later on tells us that it's referring to different types of grains or flours that have to be heavily cooked. That's what he's referring to. Amar koinim hayored l'teira. I'm answering upon myself anything that goes into a pot. Sheni time I won't eat. Then it's also becholamisvashlim l'teira. Anything cooked. So that's a very good question. You're asking a good question. The reason why I ask a good question is because there's shaila sometimes in deep frying if that's called cooked or not. So there's a shaila about what misbashal is.
Also, the word remitz doesn't. The last one is like cold or something like that.
It could be there's multiple pshatim in it. I think just to point it out. There is one pshat in the Rishonim that tells us it was from that area. And that's how they compared it there. Zok the Gemara. Tanya Rabbi Yosy Yosy. Even though the Tanakama says that mevushal does not include sleep and does not include shaluk, Rabbi Yosy holds it includes sleep. Even though we don't have a chlor riot to that fact, we have a shikal remes. Where is this pasuk and what does this pasuk say? So let me see if I can find it over here. It says in Divrei Hayamim, "Vayivashlu Pesach ba'esh kamishba." Clearly, they prepared the carbon Pesach in fire the way it's supposed to be done. The way it's supposed to be done, we know, is tzli. Yet you see the pasuk in Divrei Hayamim refers to tzli with the word bishul. So you see, bishul could mean tzli. The problem that all the achronim ask of this Gemara, and I need David's help for this, is there's a pasuk that talks about being mevashel the carbon Pesach in the Torah. I don't know the pasuk by heart.
Yes, and I was thinking about that as you're saying the Mishnah, that it uses bishul as tzli as well. So I don't remember where it is now.
So there's a pasuk that talks about the carbon Pesach would use bishul. So there's a whole bunch of Torah on it. One of the Mefarshim say, the Shalman Nedarim, I believe, say, is B'davka we're bringing a raya from Divrei Hayamim and not from the Torah. Because we're saying that Stam Nedarim don't go after Lashon Torah. It goes after Lashon B'nai Adam. So Divrei Hayamim is also Torah, but it's more Nevi'im Achronim, so it's closer to the way we speak. That's what one of the Achronim say. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh happens to learn where it says Sham Tizbach as a Pesach U'Vishalta V'Achalta that it's also referring to the Korban Chagiga. So it could be the bishul is referring to the Korban Chagiga. And there are those who learn, if some Sofer speaks about it, and some Sofer offers a teretz, that could be, there it says, Sham Tizbas HaChapesach U'Vishalta V'Achalta, could be, it means that after you make tzli, maybe then afterwards you're allowed to cook it. It could be that's what it's referring to. So there's a whole bunch of different Torah as to why the Gemara didn't pick the pasuk in the Torah rather than the pasuk in Nach. So for the Gemara, if Rabbi Yoshi's reasoning is based on the pasuk, so now we have a beautiful way to understand the machlokes between Rabbi Yoshi and the Tanakama. Rabbi Yoshi savar hachal achar lashon Torah, and that's why he brought a right from the Torah. The Tani Yilon savar v'nedarim hachal achar lashon b'nei adam, where bishul does not mean sleep. That's not the way to learn pshat. The chula alma b'nedarim hachal achar lashon b'nei adam. Of course, Rabbi Yoshi holds you follow lashon b'nei adam. So what is his real svara? His real svara is Marki Asrei, Umarki Asrei. Everyone was explaining in their place how people spoke. Be'asra the Tana Dilon, Litzli Kari Litzli, Ulumavushal Kari Mavushal. In the place of our Tana, they refer to Tzli as Tzli and Mavushal as Mavushal, and therefore when someone asked himself a Mavushal, he didn't include Tzli. But Ba'asra Rabbi Yoshia, Afilu Tzli Kari Mavushal. In Rabbi Yoshia's place, they referred to Tzli using the word Mavushal, and that's why it includes it. In fact, you have a Gavaltic Svara. But that's not what Rabbi Yoshia said. He brought a pasuk down to support his opinion. So the Gemara asmachta ba'alma. So interesting enough, the Cheskuni actually speaks about why the Rebbeinu Shloim, why the Torah tells us that the Korban Pesach has to be eaten sleep. So he says a very interesting point. One of the big ideas behind the Korban Pesach is to denigrate the goyim and to give the Eden a little bit of a feeling of superiority after they've been slaves so long. So what better way to do it, like the Rashi tells us, is to take their God and shecht it in front of them and eat it, right? That Rashi tells us that's one of the reasons why it's called Shabbos HaGodol, because they had the lamb tied up to their bed, and there was nothing the Mitzrayim were able to do about it. So the Cheskuni says, think about it. If you're cooking hot dogs for your children on your kitchen stove in the pot, how many of your neighbors are going to know about it? No one. But if you're making like a shmaka barbecue in your backyard, the whole neighborhood says, how come you didn't invite me, right? And they also roasted this in one piece. They roasted the Korban Pesach in one piece. They didn't chop it up in small pieces like when you cook it. So when they come to the backyard and say, what smells so good? They see their God being roasted on the spit, on the spit. That's the whole idea. Hashem wanted us to stick it to them, but good. So this was geschmack. That's why it's sleep. I walked right into it. Well, they roast everything because something's got to be someone's God. Zog to Gemara weiter, but at least they don't discriminate. All gods. Right? Zog to Gemara weiter. Koinim Tavshol. Speaking of God, we're about to learn a story about a doctor. Koinim Tavshol. Fact Gemara. Well, I wish there was a doctor here to see what's going on in this Gemara. Fact Gemara. What do you mean Tavshol? Tavshol Nodar. Did he not ask himself from a Tavshol? So why doesn't it include even a thick porridge? Amar Abaye, hi Tana, this Tana, Kol Nidi, the Misachal Beirifta, Tavshol Karila. Our Tana holds that the way people speak is when they refer to a Tavshol, they're always referring to something that will be eaten together with bread. V'hatanya, and I can even prove it, because it says as follows in the Brisa: Hanoidim in a Tavshol, Osir b'chol min Tavshol, v'osir b'tzli u'v'sholok. Why? Because when you eat a barbecued steak, a barbecued burger, it's geschmack to put it into a bun, right? Unless you're on a diet. Uv'sholok uv'mavoshol. But listen to this line: v'osir b'hitriyos rakos. It's also to eat soft squashes. That's also called a tavshol. Why? What makes it a tavshol? Shachoylin oichlin b'hen piton. Because sick people eat bread with them. What does that have to do with it being a tavshol? Elamai, you see from this Tana that this Tana is defining a tavshol as something that people eat together with bread. So that's it. We've proved our sugya, and now we're going to go off on a long tangent. Now the Gemara is going to challenge the fact that sick people eat squash. Any fact the Gemara, sick people eat squash. Rabbi Yirmiyah was not feeling well; he was ill. All the gabei hahu asya.
Because the choyle eats something, that's why the whole world calls it like.
No. Because a choyle sometimes eats it with bread, you see that it's normal to eat it with bread, and that's why it's also as a tavshol. So we're just proving that the symptom of a tavshol is something that people eat with bread.
Because the choyle eats righteousness, it swallows filth. That's why it's a normal thing.
No, the choyle eats squash, but he eats it with bread. Anything that's eaten with bread is called a tavshol. Right to Gemara. So all the gabehu asya. Mati, I think to myself when I go to the doctor and I have a problem, there's a million things that he could talk about, but the elephant in the room is lose weight, and then you won't have a problem, right? So I never got thrown out. I never ever in my whole life got thrown out of a doctor's office because I was overweight. Never. I maybe my yeshiva. I asked my yeshiva after my brother-in-law was nifter. I asked my yeshiva, "Ich will the yeshiva soll mich a skille parichas yomim." So he said, "I get in skille, lose 100 pounds." That's the best skille parichas yomim. So here you have a doctor who came to visit Rabbi Yirmiyah, lasuya to heal him. Chaza, he saw kara the mochas beveisa. He saw he had squash in his house. He said, "You have squash in your house? I'm out of here." Shavkua, he left him, the Nafak. And he said, Omar Malach Amovas, Malach Musa Islay, Ledain Bevese, this guy had the Malach Amovas in his house, Vana El Asa. You say, and I should come to try to heal him. Imagine if the doctor says, "What? You have cake and cookies in your house? I'm out of here. I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to give you a prescription. I'm not going to examine you." Done. But that's what this doctor did. He and the doctor. What are you talking about? He can make a fortune off a patient like that. So he doesn't know about Virapi. That's what I was saying before. Is what's the difference between a doctor and God? Very simple. God knows that he's not a doctor. Okay. So a couple of the Gemara is asking a kasha. With a brisa seems to indicate that sick people eat squash. You see, squash is not good for sick people. So the Gemara offers many tools. Soft squash, or as I call it, squishy squash, that's something that would be healthy for a sick person. But hard squash, that's something that is not healthy. Rabbi Bar Ula Omer, Habakar Gufei, Habagave. I'm sorry? So Habakar Gufei, this is the actual flesh of the squash is not good for you, but the inside is very good. I'm imagining it like don't eat the cantaloupe, but you can eat the seeds that we spill out. Like the inside is good. I'm sure that's not what it means. Okay, the inside. That's right. They say they feel healthier because they have fiber. The best way to prepare a piece of squash is basilka with beets. Cook it with beets, then it'll be very healthy. Is leek? Silk is leek? Okay, thank you. Lulivo de kisna, but if you want to have the lulav of the flax plant, which normally people don't eat flax, they actually wear flax, but it happens to be that the lulav of the kisna is good to eat bekusla. Kusla is like that sour milk, vinegar type of dip that they used to have in those days. And this, I'm sorry?
Kutach.
Kutach, right. So this medicinal, unbelievable formulation that the Gemara is sharing with us, you cannot share with anybody. The davar is asur la'omer b'fnei ha'ma'aretz. You're not allowed to tell this to an Amoritz. Remember, an Amoritz does not mean someone who's not learned. It means somebody who violates halacha, it's not machshir halacha. Why can't you tell this to an Amoritz? So there's a couple of interesting opinions brought down here. Let's first look at the Mefarish. The Mefarish says, why shouldn't you tell us to an Amoritz? It's very helpful and useful. An Amoritz, you're not allowed to share with him information that could be helpful. We're afraid if we tell them how good flax plants are to eat, they'll chop them all down to serve to eat, and then people aren't going to have clothing. We're going to be. It's like exactly what happened when the government mandated that they have to put that corn fuel into gas, ethanol. When they mandated that fuel has to be part ethanol, what happened? The price of corn went through the roof. Why? Because everybody was using it for ethanol, and then you couldn't buy corn anymore. So that's similar to this. We don't want. When you see that the government of Mandamaratzim, that they made the ethanol mandated. Besides the fact that it messes up your fuel injectors, by the way. Besides that, it also causes the price of corn to go up. The Jolly Green Giant became a lot more jolly ever since there was such a run on this corn, right? And it was green too. Oil became green. What's that? On Pesach, because it's kidneys. Yeah, I hear it's a good shaila. It's a good shaila. The dovers are also lower than Amoritz. So those are the svaris that the Mefarish says. The Ram and the other Rishonim say a little bit different. The Ram says the dovers are also lower than Amoritz. All right, that's the Ram says the same as the Mefarish, but the Rosh says a little bit different. The Rosh says also lower than Amoritz. We know that the Torah, the Gemara, includes information about everything, about life, about business. Anything you need to know is in the Gemara. But to an Amoritz, it should only be halacha lamdis. So when they see that we're talking about recipes, Sometimes I come home and tell my wife what we learned. My wife says, "No wonder you like learning the daf so much with what you tell me over your learning." So the Amaratim are going to make fun. This is in the Torah, but yes, this is in the Torah. Even the good things to cook, even healthy things to cook. Zok to Gemara weiter. You see, the Gemara is going to give us very good advice. The Gemara gives very good practical advice. Today we're going to hear a lot of interesting practical advice from the Gemara. Rabba said a different svara. So we had a stira. We said that it's good for you. It's good. The Bride said that it's good for a sick person to eat squash, and then we said that it's not good because the doctor walked away. So we made the difference between either soft or hard. A difference between if it's the outside or the inside. Rabba says really a really sick person shouldn't eat it. When the Bride says sick people eat it, it doesn't mean sick people. It means rabbanon. Rabbanon manchayil means rabbanon. Rabbanon would eat this food. And Rabba Latamei, and the Farash even says, "Sha'oiskim b'Torah ve'einam nehenim min ha'olam u'voyim l'dei cholim." The Rabbanon, they Lickin learning. They're not interested in indulging in gashmis, and it causes them to become weakened. What I guess they're not makbid on. They probably eat with sheep. Rabba Latamei, Rabba says a very interesting halacha. Kaman. According to which one the Omar are we allowed to daven every day for a chayla, for rifa'inu? Kaman matzlinon al katsiri val miri, which are two words that refer to chaylim. According to who are we allowed to daven for them every day? Kaman Rabbi Yosy. What is this shayla? So the Ram tells us, Kaman Rabbi Yosy, the Amar b'per kama de Rosh Hashanah, Adam nidain b'chol yom. Rabbi Yosy holds that Hashem paskins on us every single day. So every single day there's a reason to daven, so we should have a good zardin. The Idul Rabbanon, the Islu, the Nida in Rosh Hashanah, according to Rabbanon that we're passing in Rosh Hashanah, why should we daven the whole year? Kivin shenig mardinan ain't tefillah ma'elos lahem. So according to Rabbi Yosy, we daven every day Rafeinu. So according to who do we daven every day? According to Rabbi Yosy. Now, how are these sick people referred to? With the word Katsiri and Mari. Midamar Katsiri or Mari, since we're using these words to describe sick people, Shemamina Katsiri is Katsiri Mamish. Katsiri means someone who's ill. And the Ram says, why is someone who's ill called Katsiri? Because their life gets cut short if they die from their sickness. And Mari are referring to the Rabbanon. So the Rabbanon eat these things that aren't so good and they become weak. We said that when you say tavshul, you only include things that you would eat together with bread, but a thick porridge you wouldn't eat with bread. The Mishnah is not consistent with what the people from Babel do. The Amar Reb Zeir said, people from Babel are idiots. Could you imagine having a bread sandwich? You take a delicious slice of bread, you put it in between two pieces of bread, and then you have a bread sandwich. So that's a foolish thing to do. So why would you, if you're eating a thick porridge, it's just like you're eating a slice of bread. Why would you eat that with bread? Because they eat bread with bread. So like I said before, only an idiot would eat a bread sandwich. Amar Reb Chisda. This is also interesting. Amar Reb Chisda. Let's look at the Bach. Leka, the Mashil, there is no one to ask the following question that I'd love to know of these tipshoy. Leka, the Mashil, lahain lahalin nakdoni. I'd love to find something to ask these nakdoni. The Ram is going nakroni. So let's see what these people are. The Hutzel from the city of Hutzel. So what is either nakrani mean? The Ram says they eat with cleanliness. So they're careful with what they eat. It means they're medaktik in what they eat. I'd love to ask them the following question. Hadain daisa, you tipshoy who eat daisa, thick porridge with bread, heichamali lemechla. Tell me what's the best way to eat it. You should know, right? Because you eat it this way. Dechiti belachma dechiti. When you eat porridge from wheat, do you eat it with bread of wheat? And then there's no variety of tastes. Udesari belachma desari. Oy dilma dechiti b'desari udesari b'dechiti. Maybe when you eat porridge made out of wheat, then you eat it with barley bread. And if you eat porridge made out of barley, eat it with wheat bread, so that at least you get a little variety of taste. I remember when Beis Elio in Lakewood, when I was doing yeshiva, was under construction. So they were people of different pigments in the building working, and they also use terminology that you sometimes don't find in the Gemara. They use terms, they use words that you generally don't find in the Gemara, nor in the Besmedrus. So one of these people was speaking to his buddy, and he said, "Mother trucker," right? He said such a word. So a yeshiva guy goes over to him and says, "Can I ask you a question?" So like this guy looks at him like he just fell off the moon. The yeshiva guy, when you say mother trucker, do you mean it's the mother of the trucker, or do you mean it's the mother of all truckers? Zayt mich masber. And he looked like he's crazy. Like so, that just reminds you. Zok the Gemara, Rava achla b'chasisi. Rava would eat it with flour. He would eat his bread together with flour. I believe it was sweetened flour because it was flour that was from ground sweetened grain that were roasted. It tasted like sugar. Yeah, okay. Rabbi bar Rafuna, Ashkechelu Rafuna, the Ka'achal Daiso Betzbaase. Rabbi bar Rafuna saw his father eating daisa with his fingers. He was eating with his fingers. Omar Lei, so he asked him, Amai Ka'achal Mar Biyadei, why is Tati eating with his fingers? Omar Lei, Hachi Omar Rab. This is what Rab told us. Daisa Betzbaase Bosim. When you eat daisa, it tastes better with your fingers. You know why? Because it's finger licking good. Someone by mistake applied that to chicken, but it really comes from the Gemara. It's daisa. The choldechem b'tart. If you use 2 fingers, it's even better. The choldechem b'tlas. If you use 3 fingers, then it's unbelievable delicious. Gewaltig. So someone said over yesterday, someone was speaking about Azar Grubner. So someone said Azar Grubner is such a sweet man. If he dips his finger, it was Matel Gribner. If he would stick his finger into your coffee, you wouldn't need to put sugar into it anymore. I was about Matel Gribner.
That was Daniel's father said when they called about the shidduch with Aaron. Because I don't know Aaron. I'll tell you with Matel Gribner.
In that coffee, you wouldn't need sugar anymore. Okay, I have a good story about that we have to say after the recording's over. Amar le Rav l'Chia Barei. Rav told Chia his son. If you get invited to your friend and you ask him, what are you serving? Oh, we're serving pasta. We're serving daisa. Then at parsa, it's kadai to walk a parsa to enjoy that meal. There are those who learn that if you eat a Michael, it'll help you walk up to a parsa. If you look at the Mefarish, that's not how most Rishonim learn. It's worth going up to a parsa to get such a geschmack meal. But the Mefarish is da. It'll only keep you satisfied walking a parsa. It's 4 kilometers. Lamechel bisr the Torah. But if they invite you for a barbecue of beef, doesn't get that some zach. At plus a parsa. That's up to 3 parsa you should walk to enjoy a meal of beef because that's very healthy. That's very healthy. Okay, sure. So Amalei Rab L'Chibarei v'chein Amalei Rav Huna L'Rabba Barei. Kol Meidam, anything loisip loy, don't spit kamei l'Rabba. It's not respectable to be standing in front of your rabbi and you go. It's not respectful even in Israel, right? It's not respectful to spit. Levar, the only thing that you should spit because you got to get it out of your mouth as quickly as possible is minkara. If you have, there's also squash. If it gets with a piece that you can't swallow, you get rid of it. Vidaisa as well. You know why? They're so toxic to you if they're not to be eaten. It's like the hot lead that they pour down someone's neck when he was chayiv misas reifa. It'll destroy his insides. So therefore, even in front of a rebbe, you could spit it out. Even in front of the king, Floyd spit it out. Rabbi Yosy, Rabbi Yehuda, they were eating together. In the previous case, it was Rav Huna eating with his fingers in his own plate by himself. But here, Rabbi Yosy, we're sharing a plate of daisa. Chad ochel daisa betzba'asei. One was sticking his fingers into it and eating it that way. The chad ochel behutza, and the other one had a thin piece of bark that he was using to scoop it up, but he was double dipping. So he stuck it in, and he ate it, and he stuck it in again, right? With chopsticks. But he was using a spoon and soup, and he was double dipping. I remember when I was a bocher in Eretz Yisrael, I went to the Karlina Tish, and I remember after Kiddush, in those days, they passed the becher around. Nowadays, it would disappear. But in those days, they actually passed the Rebbe's becher around. So when they passed it to me, after 200 people drank from it, I asked them, is the becher rein? Is the becher clean? So they told me to Chassidim, "Some mizan rein. Jeder drinkt davon. It's got to be clean. Everyone's drinking from it." Right? So, Amarlei, the achol behutza, the achol betzbasik. The tzaddik that was eating with the hutza turned to the guy eating with his fingers, and he asked him, "Ad mosai ata machileni sayotzcha." Until when are you going to make me eat the dirt that's under your fingernails? Every time you stick your fingers in, the dirt from your nails goes in, and then I have to eat after that. Amarlei, he told him back, the achol betzbasik, the achol behutza, the person who was using his fingers told the fellow who was using hutza, and this guy was not rinsing off the spoon, his hutza in between, and the reason why he wasn't is because it would fall apart. And he asked, until when are you going to double dip and let me eat your saliva? So why didn't he say back? What do you mean? You don't think your fingers have saliva on them after you slobber it off? So the Rush says no, because people who eat with their fingers, after each spoonful or fingerful, they're going to wash their hands. So their fingers are not going to have saliva. They might still have dirt under their fingernails, but they won't be saliva on them anymore. But the fellow with the hutza, if he rinsed off the hutza would fall apart. So here they're sharing a plate. So it's interesting to note the Marsha speaks out that vice the they didn't have spoons, because if they had spoons, they would probably use spoons. The Ben Yehoyada says the reason why the Gemara doesn't identify which one was Rabbi Yosy and which one was Rabbi Yehuda is because they each sort of claimed that the other one was ba'aveling them. So because of that, the Gemara wanted it to remain anonymous. Because what the hell the Gemara weiter? Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, Aisu lekamayu belusvain. Belusvain, the Ran tells us, are figs that are very, very difficult to digest, so they stay in you for a very long time and simulate constipation. Rabbi Yehuda ate from it, and Rabbi Shimon lo yachal. We're soon going to see Rabbi Yehuda was very poor. That's probably the only meal he was able to get, and Rabbi Shimon didn't want to eat it. Amar le Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda asked Rabbi Shimon, "My time lo yachal, why aren't you eating?" Amar le Rabbi Shimon, "Elu ein yoyt b'dei ma'ayim kolikar," because these go in, then they never come out. I don't think it's going to be good for me. I don't think I'm going to eat it. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, adarabba, kol shegein shenismach alein lemachar. If you eat food that doesn't digest, that means it's going to stay inside your body, slowly decompose, and then your body will be able to derive nourishment from it for a long time. So that's a great type of food to eat. It's a time release energy pill. Rabbi Yehuda, because they couldn't afford healthy foods. Yeah. The Gemara says it. Rabbi Yehuda have a Yosef Kamei to Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Yehuda was one sitting in front of Rabbi Tarfon. Amalei Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon told Rabbi Yehuda, "Wow, you look good today. You're glowing, Rabbi Yehuda. Hayoim panechas tehubim. Your face is glowing. What did you do?" Amalei. So Rabbi Yehuda said, "I'll tell you what happened. Yesterday, your servants went to the field. They brought us trading. What are trading? Beets. We ate them without salt. Our faces would have glowed even nicer if we would have eaten it with salt. So nothing beats beets besides beets with salt. Amra Hahima Trinisa, this fancy lady disrespectfully said to Rabbi Yehuda. Now, normally, when you refer to your Rebbe, you say mighty v'Rebbe, right? That's it, mighty v'Rebbe. So she wanted to use a play on words, using those same words that Marsha says to be mavaza her Rebbe. And she said moira v'Rebbe. V'Rebbe means drunk. You're a moira hayra and you're a drunk. In other words, his face was shining, so she took it on. She assumed that he was a drunk. Amrle, this Gemara is the most difficult Gemara. Now I know why they don't learn the sixth parak of Nedarim in Yeshiva. Because this is the most difficult Gemara in Shas for a yeshiva bacher to understand. No matter how much you'll explain it to them, they will not be able to understand it. And you will see in a minute why. Amr Allah, he said, I promise you, I don't drink. I'm not a drinker. I'm not an alcoholic. You should believe, this lady should believe me, if I drink ever, besides for a kedusha, v'avdalta, v'arba kasa de pisla. Those are the only times I drink alcoholic beverages. And when I drink the 4 koshes on Pesach, it gives me such a headache. The wine so disagrees with me that because of my pounding headache, I have to wrap a bandana around my head until Shavuos. The chagrani tzidi min pesach ad atzeres. So I for sure don't drink. And there's a shayla, but the Mashal says Ella is not Rabbi Yehuda talking. That was his response. The Gemara adds. So where did Rabbi Yehuda get a shine from? Because chachmas adim ta'ir panav. The chachma of a person, the Torah makes my face shine. So why is this such a shver Gemara? Because the Mefarshim tell us that he was only willing to drink wine when he absolutely had to because of a chiyuv. The problem is, what about Purim? Chai finished l'basumi before you. So it's a very shver Gemara. Because how is it possible that Rabbi Yehuda didn't drink a Purim? Everybody knows that's one of the Aseret Nibros. It's the 11th one, right? So that's why it's a shver Gemara. But Rabbi Moshe brings a raya from here that by the Dalet Koshes you have to use wine. You're not going to with grape juice. Otherwise, why didn't he use grape juice? So Rabbi Moshe holds that even if you dilute the wine with water or with grape juice, you could dilute it, but there has to be a wine in there that has a minimum alcohol level, because otherwise it's not wine. Otherwise, Rabbi Yehuda would have never had a problem. Then they discuss what about benching and how much of a chiv is benching, but he only drank one when he absolutely had to. Amalei hu Tzeduki, Rabbi Yehuda. This Tzeduki saw that Rabbi Yehuda's face was shining. He says, "You can't." There's only two reasons that I can think of in my goyish head why you could possibly look so good. Either a 649 or a Powerball. Either Ika Malva Ribbis, either your Malva Ribbis, which means you made a lot of profit without any work, Ika Magat Lechazayim, or you're in the business of raising pigs, because that was also extremely lucrative. So only someone with such profits can look so good. Amar Lei, well, guess what, pal? B'Yehudai Tarvayu Asirin. Both those options are outlawed for a Yid. So why is it that I look so good? There's 24 bathrooms between my house and the Beis Medrash, and I patronize every single one. In other words, I keep a very guf naki. If you keep a very guf naki, then you look good. I look good because I take good care of myself. Rabbi Yehuda, I'm not making any bathroom jokes. Rabbi Yehuda had also levei midrasha. When Rabbi Yehuda went to the Beis Medrash, what he would do is, you know those 5-gallon tubs you could buy at Home Depot that the plaster comes in it, right? So Rabbi Yehuda carried one of those on his shoulder from his house to the Beis Medrash. Made him look like he was like a construction worker. Rabbi Yehuda had also levei midrasha shakel bilfal kaspi. He carried his jug on his shoulder to take it with him to the Beis Medrash. Omar, he said, Malacha is a good thing. Now that we're in shul, all of you are sitting on the floor. I have a 5-gallon drum to sit on. So Malacha is good. Yes, it's good that I worked a little bit and I schlepped the barrel with me. And now I have it and I can enjoy it. Rab Shimon shakel tzon al kaspa. He took a basket, same thing. And he said, Omar Gedoyla Malacha, Shemichabedis is baileha. The Visu, the Rabbi Yehuda, the wife of Rabbi Yehuda, that's what the Ram says, yeah. Yeah. The visit of Rabbi Yehuda, Nafka, she went out. They were very poor, Rabbi Yehuda. So she went out, knocked us armor, she bought some wool, and I guess she knew how to knit, to crochet, weave, whatever it is, she knew how to produce garments. Of the glimi, the hutfi, she made herself a beautiful, beautiful garment. Kadnafkas lushuka, when she would go out, she would wear it. Michsibe. The Kadnafik Rabbi Yehuda, Lutzluye, when Rabbi Yehuda would go to daven, have a mixi, he would wear it, and matli he would daven, and he loved this beged so much. The chad mixi bay have a mavorach baruch sheitani me'il. He down to the Boishlam that he gave me an opportunity to read a meal. Frank Duvi, it's a beged isha, beautiful. I was waiting for Chaim Fear to ask that kasha. I told Silbash, so the Marsha asked the kasha. So the Marsha answers that they were non-binary. The clothing were non-binary. She made a cape that was a unisex. It was equally made for a man as for a woman. And the cape identified as a non-binary. But not. There are certain begodim, like a cape, that could equally be appropriate for both. So that's what this was. So it was a non-binary cape. Zimna chada, a unisex, right? Zimna chada, Godzer Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, Tanisa. The Godel Hadar made a tiny, and the custom was everybody come to Beis Medrash to daven. We really were so poor, they had this one beged. He didn't have clothing. He simply didn't have clothing with which to go to the Beis Medrash. So someone said, yes, no wonder he ate those figs that stay in your stomach for a week, because he probably didn't have so much to eat either. Rabbi Yehuda also levei tanis, he didn't come. Armulay, they told him that probably he doesn't have clothing. So Shadr Glima, so they sent him a beged so that he could wear it. He didn't want to take it. And then you know what he did? He says, "You think I need your beged?" Doli tipta, he pulled up the mat, and miraculously there was a lot of cash there. So Doli tipta, Chazi, Micah, you're bringing me a beged, they're sending me? I have plenty of cash. I just don't want to be nehena from Olam Hazeh. So I have access if I want it, but I don't want. So they asked, first of all, how do you know there was cash there? So someone said he was sitting on the mat and there was a bump there. So he figured if there's a bump there, for sure the Rebbeinu Shalom sent me cash. I once was sitting on the mat and there was a bump there, and I picked it up and there was a rock there. But again, I'm not Yehuda. Okay, so Bez Hashem, we will be mamshach tomorrow. Tomorrow we're chazing go with the beautiful Gemara of Rabbi Kiva and how he got married and how Shver loved him eventually, and it'll be a beautiful ma'aser. Shkoyach, have a wonderful day.
You wanted to say something, but.
Well, I could only say something after I shut off the.